The world is changing. We're always adapting. We're looking at New York now. So we're going to watch here this video, and we're going to get your reactions in the comments. I want you to talk about what you feel in your city. If you're experiencing anything with dealing with the migrants, we want to hear about it in the comments, because this affects all of us. If it affects New York, it affects California. If it affects California, it affects New Jersey. We're all connected. We're all one nation. Let's see what we have to do. What we have going on here.
Coming in here. This deli manager
Do this until February 1st. On January 1st, we're starting a 4-week chair workout challenge for beginners.
Even my customers are scared coming in here. This deli manager, Ahmed, says one of the most dangerous jobs in the city is working in a deli, especially late at night. It's a part of their job. But it should absolutely not be.
So, New York City's beloved delis, they've been part of a growing crime wave, which isn't exactly new, as our laws protect criminals who never get sent to jail for stealing. However, now those same laws are being used to arrest the law-abiding, which is what's happened to several employees at stores like this one who've tried to stand up to thieves on their own.
A police search tonight for a repeat robber seen on video holding up the same bodega not once, not twice, but 3 different times.
It's been bad. We've been dealing with these guys all the time, but this time was different.
This time, they didn't leave without trying to fight.
Francisco did not know what he had in his hand. Could have been a knife. If he has to go to jail, I don't know what the kids are going to do.
It all happened in less than 30 seconds. Leave without trying to.
This is right on Wyckoff. You see this right here? This is Wyckoff. You know the liquor store that's on the corner? This is Putnam. Wyckoff, Putnam here. That's the liquor store that's right here. Look at this. Watch this. Yeah, it's okay. I'm gonna edit all this out.
Times.
Watch this guy. This is the guy
that dealing with these guys all the time, but this time was different.
This time, they didn't leave without trying to fight.
Francisco did not know what he had in his hand. Could have been a knife. If he has to go to jail, I don't know what the kids are going to do.
It all happened in less than 30 seconds. The two men walked into the A&H deli, picked up the ATM, walked out, and got into a van. His co-worker, too stunned to even act.
Deli owners we spoke to say it's hard right now to find people willing to work behind the counter in these conditions.
We having a problem. I don't have no deli man on weekends.
I think we need some security at the doors, especially the store that's open 24 hours.
And now police say this deli is just one of 20 that have been hit in an ongoing robbery pattern.
That's crazy. Migrants are taking jobs from the poor blacks.
So local business owners in New York are controversially taking matters into their own hands when it comes to crime. And this is not the first incident of its kind, but what nobody's talking about is that prosecuting the innocent and defending criminals.
They say a bodega man was arrested by the cops for defending himself because he found a gun in the bathroom 2 hours before the crime happened, he says. 2 hours before he got robbed, he says he found a gun in the bathroom in his Bronx bodega. He said he didn't have time to report it to the cops. Subsequently, he was robbed and used that gun on the perpetrator and shot the perpetrator, sent him to the hospital. But they're charging him with attempted murder. It's crazy.
That's been the new normal here for so long that it's not exactly new. And the last thing our progressive leaders want is for someone who has a business to stop someone who doesn't have one from robbing it. Now, of course, nobody wants vigilantes, and no store owner should try to take on criminals. They should call law enforcement. However, critics say that's what many business owners have been doing. Yet our laws release these very same crooks who oftentimes return to the scene of the crime, putting many owners and employees in a position where they say they've got their backs to a wall. And this is bewildering to many of us normal individuals. Why would a city defend criminals at the expense of businesses, many of whom are cornerstones of their community? That doesn't make any sense. Until, of course, you realize that New York City's legal system sees people not as criminals who rob and threaten the survival of our working class. Instead, they're seen as victims of a society that's been unfair to them in some way. And when they commit crime, our legal system takes the position that whoever their their victims are probably deserved it for being financially independent. Which brings us to the real reason why there's this convenience store crime wave and why owners of these little places are getting in trouble for protecting themselves when law enforcement fails to arrive. It makes our leaders look bad for defunding the police, a decision which now appears to have made law-abiding society vulnerable to criminals, while at the same time, our progressive leaders secretly see these criminals as those who need to be kept safe from society and its laws. However, as you're about to see, it's normal, hardworking people who need protection, and they're not getting it.
So I just want to note this. I appreciate this guy, Cash Jordan, for doing the type of documentaries he's done in the city, because he does allow a lot of people who are not from New York to experience in New York and the politics that we have here. But Cash is coming from wherever he's from and commenting on a city that he is not been raised in. So his perspective can be taken as conjecture, political conjecture. It's not, his feet are on the ground as a bystander, but he's not, the way he's seeing this, the landscape of the city, is as if he's coming to the city as an outsider. He doesn't understand the inner workings of the city, the inner machinery of the city to comment fully. He can, I think his role should be, or we should take his information as like the facts that he gives, appreciate the facts, but the dialogue regarding the commentary as to why the city got here, that's not your place to comment, bro. You don't know this city like that. You really don't. So keep giving us the documentary. Save the commentary for your blog, your your Medium account. Give us the facts. We don't want your opinion on the city, honestly, because it's not valid. It's valid as much as an outsider. If I went to St. Petersburg, Russia, and I told them about their city, not knowing anything, just by researching and taking YouTube videos in the city, that is not enough. You're a video documentarian. Documentarians give the facts, and they don't give emotional responses. Okay, so let's. I digress. Okay.
Of 7-Eleven. This place has a salad bar. And in some parts of the city, these are the only places you can buy groceries because there aren't grocery stores, making stores like this the only option some folks have to get what they need to survive. But sadly, little stores like this have so many problems with crime, some of them may not survive.
He says the two men walked into the A&H Deli on Ralph Avenue and Herkimer Street, picked up the ATM, walked out, and got into a van. His coworker, too stunned to even act. Bilal says there are two ATMs in the deli.
The guy, the store worker couldn't even move. He's just like, no, this is not happening, for real. Yes, it's happening, bro. And I don't blame him. He's getting paid $11 an hour. He's not getting paid to be security guard and store man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And if he touched them, then he would have been prosecuted. All these bodega people are getting prosecuted. Before, the bodega man had carte blanche to whoop your ass. Okay? In New York City, everybody who knows, if I go into the bodega and act a fool, I might get shot, stabbed, or apprehended by the store man and his family. And the bodega cat might help. The bodega cat might help and scratch your ass while you're down there. Okay? So this whole new city where they're prosecuting the store man, that's crazy.
Deli. One is bolted to the ground. The other, the one that...
Okay, if criminals can do that and get away with it, nobody arrested, more of these businesses are going to look like the one behind me, which is closed. And to stop his store from closing, one store owner took matters into his own hands when criminals entered his business to try and steal from it. And he controversially used an item to defend himself that he says was left on the premises inside one of the bathrooms by a criminal. And you see this bodega owner here, he was working at his store when two masked men entered, just like in that video we looked at, and started stealing. And to make matters worse, those men themselves were apparently apparently armed. But even though the robbers who entered the store had illegal items of their own that they were going to use to assist them in their criminal endeavors, the owner, he was also doing something illegal by using the thing he found to defend the store and scare them off. On top of that, the owner of the store, who's being charged, says he found the illegal item in the bathroom of his shop 2 hours prior to the criminal activity taking place. And since the store owner did not have a license for such an item, this whole situation is wrong. He found it 2 hours before the criminals came into the store. It's a high crime area. He should have called the police, and had they been there, this whole situation probably wouldn't have happened, but the owner made a mistake by holding on to that thing that he found. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad guy. Nobody is. Everyone defending him says he's a great guy. He goes to church, he's got kids, and he just wanted to keep himself safe. But here's why this is controversial in this city. It's common for criminals to have charges against them dismissed or downgraded to the point where they're not actually criminals anymore. And here we've got a business owner who may not receive the same treatment from our justice system. And the reason this looks so unfair is because selective enforcement of laws against criminals is what many people say has led to robbery patterns like those we're witnessing. And now we've got a business owner that may suffer from selective enforcement. Either way, this is not the first time something like this has happened at a small...
See, selective enforcement is a thing that's not new at all, but it used to benefit the wealthy and the privileged in New York. Those same wealthy and privileged have now told state government by lobbying and by their voice in Albany that they don't want the criminals to be castigated for their crimes. We don't want them to be ostracized for their crimes. So if you can't afford bail, the bail reform movement, this is not necessarily a result of selective prosecuting. There is that at play, but what we're looking at is the misuse. What was I saying? Lost my train of thought. Bail reform. Yes, these guys that do these little crimes. Thank you. They're doing these crimes and they have no fear of retribution because if they can't afford a bail, they don't have to show any assets, right? They can't prove any assets. They it's a catch and release program now in New York. So that if you catch a felony, they're gonna arrest you, put you in arraignment. You see the judge next day within 24 hours, and then you're going home on your own recognizance. If you're a flight risk, they'll hold you. But most times these petty crimes, they're not flight risks. They don't even have anywhere to live. So they some of these guys, they want to go to jail so they can get 3 hots in a cot for the winter. But that program is done now. They can't use the jail like a halfway house because it's the catch and release in the city now. And we this has been about 3 years of this new policy. So we don't know how it's going to really play out. But we do know that crime has increased. Petty crime has increased in some districts by as high as 40%. So those numbers are crazy. We have a new commissioner in New York that's going to hopefully lead a different path when it comes to the way police culture is administered, because that has a lot to do with it. But the cops are responding to the crime. The cops cannot be blamed for the crime rate being heightened if there are social political factors like migration. We have 875,000 increased numbers in New York due to migrants, and that number is not. I would say that number should be a plus or minus of 25,000, because there's people coming in every day, leaving every day. We don't know, so that number can be a plus minus about 25,000. But the city has changed indefinitely, so we're seeing this through these type of events.
Small business in recent months.
The store's surveillance video shows.
All right, we back here. We're back.
selective enforcement. Either way, this is not the first time something like this has happened at a small business in recent months.
The store's surveillance video shows two young men walking in and splitting up inside Franja Wines and Liquors on Wyckoff Avenue. One of them tries to steal a large liquor bottle right in front of the camera, but owner Francisco Valerio and his brother Luis are onto them, grabbing them and telling the would-be thieves to get lost. This time, they didn't leave without trying to fight. One throws down his bag and...
So we're standing in front of a small, privately owned liquor store like the one in this story, which was getting robbed by criminals who could have been armed. And in this story, you have two repeat offenders who were well known to the owners of the establishment and had been caught stealing there before. Apparently, they entered the store and started putting items in their jackets when the owner and his brother spotted them and decided to escort them out, at which point things took a turn for the worst when the criminals decided that they didn't like being escorted out of a business they weren't done robbing. And one of the owners, who's now facing charges, was holding on to a registered item that he had on his person with a license to carry, which accidentally went off during the scuffle. It happened on the sidewalk right in front of the business. Multiple security cameras captured it. The criminal was not seriously injured, and the owner was licensed this time, but he's still being charged. And regardless of your stance on this story, this is another moment where we've all got to appreciate the fact that had the police been involved, things probably would have turned out differently. And in hindsight, everyone probably agrees that a couple of stolen bottles of wine would have been a small price to pay for all of the trouble everyone's going through now. But once again, the only reason this seems unfair is because the only one in this story with anything to lose is the store owner, not the criminals. They're not going to lose anything because of this.
Francisco did not know what he had in his hand could have been a knife. He has to go to jail. I don't know what the kids are going to do.
Tonight, Valerio's emotional...
Now, in hindsight, none of this is worth it. It's a shame. It's too bad the police couldn't get there. And now we've got two business owners who could lose everything, and their families are now in jeopardy. However, this...
Really, the city has failed these people. If the police are telling you, we can't make it to you, protect yourself, and then you protect yourself, you're held accountable for the actions of a thief who's coming to rob your place, and that will cause you bodily harm. Once you take force with him and you go to jail, the system is it's preying upon itself. You know, the system's supposed to protect businesses, property, people, but if you're just giving these people a slap on the wrist, catch and releasing them, the message is they can get away with whatever they want to get away with.
This brings up a larger question, because violent criminals entered these stores and started doing something that was wrong. At what point does a law-abiding citizen have the right not to be taken advantage of? That's something that a lot of people want to talk about when they hear stories like this.